Namaste. Thank you for bringing yourself to the mat. I'm not sure what it took for you today, but that's worth celebrating right from the start. I always like to say the hard work is done now. You did it. You got here, and now we just get to let it unfold, right? Be curious. And curiosity, in fact, I find is one of our best tools. It's one of my best tools anyway for staying present with the breath, which is really like stunningly hard to do, right? So, okay, I'm going to pay attention to my breath. I'm going to watch one full breath come and go. And before you know it, your mind is off on something that happened, something you're going to do, a conversation you had, whatever it might be. And what's really kind of hilarious is when we start watching the mind and what it goes to, sometimes we're even like, why am I even thinking about that? It's not even important to me. And what we know is it's not what's happening in the moment. What's happening in the moment is we're breathing, we're here in this body, this place wherever you happen to be doing your practice, with the sounds that might be around. I'm getting to hear a bunch of bird sounds from outside. I'm hoping that they'll waft in and you'll get to hear them as well, and maybe they'll blend with the ones you've got. But the breath is the center of life. It's the center, obviously, of our yoga practice. And so the capacity to simply stay present with the breath is actually really powerful. It's a skill that we'll never perfect. We will never be done being distracted by our monkey or puppy mind that zips off on an adventure. But we can get better at it. And for me, one of my best tools is asking of the breath as I'm watching the inhale kind of rise and fill in my body, is there more? Is there more? And that curiosity attaches me to the moment, to what's happening in the breath, to subtle sensations in my body that allow me to distinguish. Oh, okay, yes, there's more, and all of a sudden, no, there isn't. The inhale's done. Okay, now, how about the exhale, and is there more? So I'm going to be weaving that phrase, which I've been using for years with our yogis, throughout this practice with just a little more frequency. And so while we'll be doing a lot of postures that many of you are already familiar with and a lot of shapes, what we're most interested in always is not perfecting a particular pose. And we can get really fixed on that in yoga, especially kind of the modern version of yoga. There's so much out there that's about looking good or whatever. What we're really, really interested in is, how does the breath feel in this shape? Where do I feel it? So if I'm in this shape and I'm inhaling deeply, I'm probably going to feel breath more deeply into this rib cage than this, versus if I'm neutral. And so it's just a really fun, I guess, attention to put on breath that brings us into attention in the body and sensation in the body. So I encourage you to have fun with that. I'm also going to intentionally bring us into a few shapes that are helpful for noticing the breath. And one of them, I find it very helpful to have either like a rolled up towel or blanket, like so, prepared. And so I've got that one here for me, or a yoga block if you like that higher space. We're going to be placing it under the rib cage, just south of, if you will, the wingtips of the shoulder blades. So it's not going to be on the shoulder blades, but just down below. And if this is new to you, or you've been really stiff, I find it changes a lot for me from day to day, then for sure have the softer, squishier version available. And what's kind of fun with something like this is that you can roll and unroll it to make it a thicker or a thinner surface. So please have that available. We'll also be ending with a seated meditation. So plan to have something you can sit on. You could just sit right on an ottoman or the edge of a couch or a chair if you'd like. You don't have to be down on the floor. But otherwise, I find something like this bolster is really helpful for creating an upward spine. And I like having a little shawl sometimes. So last thought on that before we begin our practice is that the bolster and its support of the upright spine versus me sitting, cross-legged like this is really important, because the breath is directed by the shape of our body, as we just talked about, right? So if the shape of my body is this when I'm trying to breathe or meditate, my breath is going to happen a little bit more back here and not at all in the diaphragm movement and the abdomen the way it's intended to. So one of the best ways to return to really good deep breath is to make sure that we're finding a neutral spine and so on. And I focused on neutrality a lot a couple of weeks ago, the week right before the 4th of July. We did a lot on finding neutral with the spine and the shoulder girdle and the hip girdle and stuff. So that'd be a fun one to revisit if you're like, I'm not even sure what that means. So we're going to start off on our back bodies. And once you come down, just spend some time wiggling around. Get really, really comfortable and give yourself a chance to settle in. So I'm taking my legs a little wider than the path of the hip alignment. And I'm letting my arms kind of splay out. I'm going to work my shoulder blades a little underneath me. And I notice how that creates some nice space right at the base of the neck there and into the cervical spine. It just feels really peaceful. And when you're ready, please start checking the ease of the neck by just rolling the head side to side. And then coming back to center, you can also begin to take your chin up and down towards the chest. The up isn't working so great for me with my hair and headphones I've got on right now, but I think you get the idea. Working the chin as far up and back as you can, and then squishing it to the throat. And this is just wonderfully massaging your spinal column, which can get just rigid and tight, whether it's from sitting too much or doing a lot of repetitive, say, garden work or anything else. And then please bring that head back to a still point. Should feel really easeful now in that upper spine. And please join me. Close your eyes, turning your gaze up and in towards that third eye point, right between and above the eyebrows. And that inward looking, get curious. What do you see behind the eyes? Light, darkness? Is there a color? And we're going to come into a few rounds of sighing breaths together. We know that sighing actually helps calm the amygdala, the alarm center of the brain. It says, I am well, I am whole, I am safe. There's nothing to accomplish in this moment. So as you're ready, gather your first long inhale through the nose. Notice the belly expanding, other parts too being touched by the breath. Is there more? And exhaling through the mouth. Is there more? Notice the pause, and then the next inhale, rising again in the body through the nose. And noticing if you can let your body just sink a little more deeply. Again, inhaling slow, deep and wide through the nose, asking, is there more? Is there more? And on an exhale, a soft release through the mouth and letting the body get deeply heavy. I'm going to ask you to just briefly reflect if you've been carrying any thoughts that are kind of stressful, a little worry-oriented, if they've kind of kept you in a place of anticipation or waiting to relax, waiting to exhale. And if you have, I'm going to ask you to identify, if you're able, where those feelings have lodged in the body. Have you had a tight stomach, a tight chest? Have you been furrowing your eyebrows or squishing your tongue against the roof of the mouth, maybe clenching the teeth? Try to observe for a moment any physical ramifications or reflections of those stresses. A very common one is the base of the neck skull area. And I'm going to invite you to join me in 3 more sighing breaths, very intentionally inviting release from those areas you might have identified. Gathering a long inhale each time, asking, is there more? Don't try to match your breath length to mine. Hope you're able to find inhale moving into your upper back, giving you a little massage and sensation there. Is there more? One more round. And now please, with your gaze still turned up and in, we're going to find the other 2 points of introversion as I consider them, things that help us stay focused and in the body. Lightly connect the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth, the rest of the tongue nice and soft. A spacious, kind of relaxed position actually tells the body, I am safe, I'm well, I'm not striving, there's no effort here, no perfectionism, this is perfect. And then the other point of introversion, ujjayi breathing. Contract your throat a little bit so that as the breath passes through, it makes kind of a sound. So even though the mouth is closed, it makes a similar sound to kind of waves or wind in the trees, or something you would get if you were kind of going like you were kind of frustrated or something, but slower, more steady, more relaxed. And this ujjayi is a wonderful place for us to put our attention if it wanders off in the puppy mind or monkey mind. So with that in place, if you find it difficult, let ujjayi go. Otherwise, inward looking, tip of the tongue connected. We're going to come into compression and expansion, a really great way to reclaim our full breath capacity. Most of us maybe exhale 60 to 70% of our breath at any given time. We're going to up that by a lot. Gather a long inhale into the belly, into the chest, asking, is there more? Find the pause, the point of completion. And then exhaling, engage the abdomen firmly down towards the spine into the floor. Hopefully you can even get no little valley left in the low back. Keep asking, is there more? Pressing breath out until there's nothing left. Relax the body and let that next inhale fill you, massage you, bring you full dose of life force. Is there more? Is there more? And exhaling compression. So if you're doing this powerful downward motion of the core correctly, you should feel your pelvis, your pubic bone and hip bones tilt up. You're not using the legs to make it happen. It's just from the spinal movement in that getting rid of the lower spine arch, the pelvis has to respond. Is there more? Really talk to these muscles. If this area of you feels weak and sleepy, sometimes I take my fingers and I tell those muscles on the exhale in compression to contract to help with the squeezing out. So continue with your expansion and compression and add any touch. You can even just have the hands on the abdomen to help. Another thing I like to do during my compression is to roll my head a little side to side to make sure that I'm not tightening through the neck and particularly the trapezius muscles. If you're a chronic shrugger, neck tightener when you're trying to focus on something, that might show up here, and this is a great place to retrain. We'll do about 3 more. Is there more? Is there more? And the hands on the belly can be nice too to encourage a good belly expansion on the inhale, asking, is there more? Expanding at the very end of the inhale. Last one. And when you let go of your last compression, inhale and just reach the arms above the head and start organically stretching. I'm rolling my ankles, my wrists. Oh, I'm going to flex my feet and my palms like I'm pushing the 2 walls apart. Oh. And then I'm going to clasp my right hand around my left wrist and pull to the right. Keep pressing through the heels, taking a deep breath here. Notice where it touches you. Let it expand into the abdomen or anywhere it can. And let's go to the other side. Left hand clasps right wrist.
And as you're focusing on your breath, asking, is there more? Also try to notice if there's an intense stretch on one side versus the other. Ah, lovely. We're going to bring those arms in alongside the body. Plant the feet beneath the knees for bridge pose. So some people have their arms just alongside the body, palms flat. If you're doing that, you still want to squish your upper arms in underneath you. One of my favorite positions is I bend my elbows, I've got my fingers splayed towards the sky. I find I take on less neck tension if I'm doing it this way, but feel free to explore and experiment in your own body. Feet are flat, right beneath the knees. Big belly inhale. Exhale, belly to spine, spine to floor like you did in compression, and let that bring the pelvis up off the floor into bridge pose. Inhaling, come back down as slowly as you can. So this is really great for waking up the back body, the posterior chain, the glutes, the hamstrings. Asking of the inhale, is there more? And exhaling, pressing up again. And inhaling slowly down as slowly as you can to really wake up that back body. And continue exhaling up, inhaling down. So as you're pressing the pelvis up, try to have the weight deeply in the whole foot. For some of us, the weight might go to the outer foot and the knees will splay out. Another way to help with that, keeping them internally engaged, is to pretend you're squeezing like a cork block like I have here or something between the legs. Or if that's a real challenge area for you, add an actual object there to engage into, and you might find a whole line of intelligence in those inner thighs and so on that you hadn't realized was there still. All right, one last time. And then see if you can hold, see if you can deepen the shoulder blades beneath. Some of you may be able to intertwine the fingers, yoga mudra. The hands are clasped with the palms facing, and I'm powering down through the pinkies, pressing the fists towards the heels. Obviously, if this hurts your back or anything in the neck, you adjust, you return to where we were. One more long inhale, powering down through the arm, raising up through the chest. And notice where the inhale stretches you here. Last little bit, is there more? And slowly, slowly releasing, knees to belly. Oh, it feels so good in the low back. Again, in yoga, we almost always try to make those counter stretches, the counter shape, the opposite of what we just did. So we're going to plant the left foot, take the right ankle onto the left thigh. If you prefer classic pigeon instead of this reclined pigeon, you may go there, of course. And then please keep the feet flexed as you bring the whole deal towards you, if you can. If you can't, then you keep that left foot on the floor. Otherwise, bring it towards you. Shoulder heads are anchoring, no neck tension. And then rotate a little to the left with the legs. And you should feel a good stretch kind of coming into that right glute hip area. You might feel it other places, like into that hamstring zone that we were talking about, is so tight on most of us. Breathing, giving yourself a good massage, adjusting a little left and a little right, whatever feels natural to you. Again, the more you adjust these poses to what you need in the moment, the more you're doing yoga and not, synchronized swimming or something. When you're ready, come on back, return to that left foot, uncross the right, cross the left ankle onto right thigh, feet are flexed as I bring the whole deal towards my chest. And you can use both hands around the left knee. I sometimes have the left hand on my left knee in this case, and I use my right hand to kind of apply pressure on the foot. So immediately we're curious, is this side different, and what is it like to breathe here? And as I rotate a little right, I'm going to say hello to that edge, that intense stretch that I hope you're getting. The edge is the place where there's intensity that we can soften around, that we can welcome. And it's usually at the edge that transformation happens. So those of us who are just chronically tight, you've got to be willing to hang out in that edge spot, but be able to breathe into it in order to get change. If we're just kind of tight and going, oh my God, nothing will change. So make sure you back off if you need to breathe. And slowly back, return the floor foot and uncross. Good, bring the feet together and invite the legs to just gently open into a butterfly. So this is a relaxed butterfly. If some of you prefer a more active butterfly, you could have the heels towards the butt and hands wrapping around the blades. You could even add a little sit-up motion, and some of us like adding that little, what I call windshield wiper, where you think about bringing one toe, one foot towards your nose, not with the intention that they ever need to touch. But even if you're getting a little movement out here, you're getting some nice joint fluidity. I think of it like WD-40ing our ankles and knees and hips. So if you are in the relaxed position, you'll be able to feel the breath a little bit more than those of us who are being very active in it. So bring your attention, everybody, whichever version you're in, big belly breath. Is there more? And see if you can get it to register into the low belly and then push down into the hips. Nice. And then bring the legs back up. Please plant your feet, everyone, and I want you to take them like you had in bridge, under the knees kind of, but then take them wide. So right out beyond the edges of the mat if you can. And you're going to very, very slowly windshield wiper one knee down towards the center line of the mat and then the other. And this is, again, a really nice way to bring fluidity back to these joints. We're designed to have an incredible range of movement through here, and a lot of us have lost it just because we haven't been doing much range of movement. And of course, if you've had any joint replacement stuff, or you're experiencing any joint pain or arthritis, then you're just going to adjust to what's possible, which is what we all have to do all the time anyway, right? We've got these bodies with these incredible histories, and sometimes until we get to the mat, we don't even know what's going on in there. So when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to leave your left knee down, take your left arm up and over your head, and if you want to kind of intentionally press the left knee towards the floor, and then deepen the breath into the belly, notice where you feel it. Is there more? And then come slowly back with the knee and the arm, and now the right knee down. You can see I'm keeping my left knee fairly up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dropping it to the outside, but it's just going to be a different stretch. Right arm is up and overhead. Let the head go wherever you want. Is there more? Powering down a little bit through that right knee. Again, if you feel any pain or impingement, you adjust, you back off to the place where it's just a good stretch. Intense maybe, but you can welcome it. And release. Good. We're going to come into bridge one more time, and we're going to be adding our leg extensions. So we don't want to be in yoga mudra. We want to be in one of the first two arm positions. Shoulder heads a little bit beneath us. I call it like a shoulder blade sandwich. A little tunnel forms between the blades. As you're ready, press up. And if your feet are more than like 4 or 5 inches apart, you'll want to move them in. If you've got someone in the household practicing with you, you guys can check and make sure too that your feet are parallel. And then ever so slowly extend through one leg. Now if that's just too much, please remember the alternate is to just lift one heel an inch or two off the floor. So if you're really tight or sore, you're not sure, start there. As you're ready, add that leg extension. Notice if you're dropping a hip bone, and if so, raise it back to neutral. I'm keeping my thighs and knees the same height, so the leg is just extending and then bending through the knee joint. One little add-on, next time you've got one leg extended, hold and push with your floor leg and just see if you can raise the hips a little bit. Notice which muscles that works in the back of the leg there. And switch. Breathing, extending the other leg, and push a little with the floor leg. Hello. Good. And if you need a break, you just come on down. Otherwise, if you can, join me in one more round. Holding in bridge, slowly, foot flexed. Try not to use the neck. Also, don't do a lot of huge head movements, but you can kind of just move it a little left and right to check that you're not bearing down with your head. You should be able to hopefully be using the shoulder heads or arms. I know some people have enjoyed having the arms up. They feel like they do less neck work when they're doing that. And come on down one more time, knees to belly. Remember, you can sigh anytime. We highly encourage that. All right, we're going to do one more thing here on the floor before we come on up to our feet, and that's our robot. And so if this is something you do all the time and you want to go into full robot with the arms and everything, feel free. I'm going to start off just with the legs. So I'm going to flex the feet, and the very first thing I want to do is notice, can I push my back into the floor, just like we end up doing in compression breath. And if this is hard for you, you're like, I don't know, try putting a hand underneath and imagine you want to press into it. All right, so I'm going to keep my legs parallel, feet flexed. Legs are not touching, they're just parallel. And with that engagement down into the spine, I'm going to slowly take my knees away until I think they're about straight up over the hips. You could do this in front of a mirror, or again, ask someone in the household if you've got somebody there to check you, because we want to stay in what I call double 90. So there's that 90-degree angle at the hips, 90 at the knees. And if this is new to you, again, you might find it really helpful having your hands on the abdomen to tell those muscles to draw down. Because I know I really had a habit of my muscles pushing out, and we want to train them to draw down because that's what's going to support the spine, not just here on the mat, but in daily life when we're lifting things and doing stuff. So gather a long inhale, soft neck, light connection, tip of the tongue, roof of the mouth, ujjayi breath if you want. Exhale, belly to spine, and just take your right heel a few inches towards the floor. And I'm actually doing it by hinging my hip. And come on back. Big inhale. Exhaling, take the other heel, left heel a few inches. This may not seem like a lot, but if you check in, it is a lot of work to keep the back rooted and to not compensate by bringing that right knee towards you. You're keeping it right there over the hip bone. Come on back. Let's do that one more time. Big inhale, exhale, power down, boom. Take that right heel a few inches. Maybe you're exploring a little more depth here. And come on back. Inhaling in neutral. Is there more? You'll notice it's hard to breathe fully when we're using the core. So it's got to be willful, it's got to be conscious. Exhaling, taking that left heel a little closer to the floor, exploring that tension of how hard it is to keep rooted or how much you want to move that other leg. And it can feel really good to release, and especially roll out your ankles. But keeping the feet flexed is really powerful. It helps us stay core supported, but can also get like a little like crampy or weird, and you always want to release, roll it out, and come back. All right. So if you want to keep using the hands on the abdomen, go for it. You could also have them up in our neutral position. This is the starting position for the arms, and shoulder heads are anchored down the back into the floor. Again, soft neck. So I'm not going to move my arms, or I'm going to try not to. A lot of us will automatically start to move the arm when the leg moves. So that's another mental brain gym challenge. Take a big inhale. Is there more? Exhaling, take your knees right over the hips and powering down through the core. When you're ready, take one heel towards the floor. Maybe it touches down, but not if you're losing your integrity. Just don't go that far. And come on back. Big inhale. And exhaling slowly the other heel towards the floor. Again, talking to those muscles, keeping them rooted instead of pushing out. And come on back. Good. So for a lot of us, when we're doing this, again, the limbs are going to want to move that we're trying to keep neutral and stable. So just challenging you, if this is hard for you, you're normal. And that's why we call it discombobulated robot versus just robot pose. The full pose is one arm, one leg, and they're moving in opposite directions. And so see, that arm wanted to move, and I'm like, okay, no, So that's really fun to play with, but when I was doing it initially and trying to learn this, I started off with just the legs so I could focus, and it took me a few weeks before I could keep that other knee from moving. When you're ready, come on up. If you want to do spinal rocking to get there, and it doesn't hurt, fantastic. It's kind of fun to play with how much momentum do you need to get onto your feet. And we're going to come right into ragdoll. So if you're already standing, bend the knees before coming on down and kind of draping yourself over your legs. Now this is a challenging place for many of us to breathe. When I first started yoga, first of all, I found being upside down like made me almost claustrophobic because I felt like I couldn't get enough breath into my belly. So one of the things that this pose teaches us is to try and bring breath into other places. So see if you can bring breath into your lower back, into your kidney area, maybe even into the upper back. If this is too much on your low back or hamstrings, you can have your elbows on your thighs for support. Please make sure your feet are parallel, straight forward, kind of no more than 6 inches apart. If you're pretty comfortable here, you want to wrap opposite arms around the bicep, you can. And part of what I love about this knee bent ragdoll position, as we call it, is that there's a wonderful opportunity for stretch into the hamstrings. We don't have to have the legs straight. And that the bent knee is bringing the stretch right into the belly or the meat of the hamstring versus up into the attachment points at the glute or behind the knee. So if you're feeling the stretches, those places, definitely bend the knees, maybe bend them more deeply, maybe add a little bit of support, whatever's needed. A few more breaths, asking, is there more? It's going to feel really good when we stand up, I promise, but see if you can get that deep, committed breath right here. And if you want, you can even move a little side to side, a wonderful massage for the IT band, all the connective tissue around the knee. When we come up, always on the inhale, drop the butt, get the spine nice and stacked, and come on up. Exhaling, prayer hands at the heart. And pause, close the eyes, and experience breath once again into your full breath space, our front body, back body, and even into the ribs. Is there more? Good. So hoping you've already had some wonderful experiences of where you're experiencing breath. We're going to take our bodies into a little warrior flow, Virabhadrasana, which is the spiritual warrior, not like the duke it out, fight somebody warrior. This is really about getting grounded and centered in our bodies, but also our energy, our truth, and so on. So we're going to pay great attention to the rooting energy. So right here, first of all, come towards the front of your mat in your mountain feet, Tadasana, which is just straight forward again, 6 inches apart or so. And inviting you to kind of push the earth away, really work the feet, the thighs, the hunkering down. We're not just here because gravity's holding us, we're pushing. And then with that engagement, you're now stable, I hope. Lift that left knee, standing crane. Hold. That left toes are curled back towards the knee, what I call yoga toes. And right away we might notice that we're wobbling a little bit or waving in the wind like a tree. And that's great. This is good practice. Balance is actually really boring if you're just standing there stable. So I usually say, if this is easy, close your eyes. Make it harder. Otherwise, focus on where you're losing your balance. And usually, it's the inner line of the standing foot peeling away. So I'm going to, again, use the thigh and the butt to push into the earth. Good. One more deep breath. And now slowly step back, coming into crescent lunge. So right on the ball of that back foot. You can do it in multiple steps, of course. Steer the hip bones forward. And I'm going to come into jet airplane here. So the palms are rotating forward, shoulder heads down. I can really feel all this core strength here. Boom. Neck is soft. Tongue is soft. Thigh is powering back. If you can deepen your lunge, go for it. And you do that by scooching your front foot forward. We'll only be here for another couple of breaths. So see if you can handle that. Go right for your edge. Breathing. Is there more? Nice. Inhaling. If you want to sweep up and add a little heart lift, pressing forward, go for it. Exhaling, we're going to open to Warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2. So now that back foot's flat, 90 degrees, and reaching out. And we want those thighs externally rotating, and that's what's going to make us super stable. If I'm not using my right butt cheek to press towards the left edge of the mat, I might look down and see my thigh as at an angle instead of straight ahead tracking with the foot. And so that's my good clue that, like, I am not using my grounding muscles and I'm not stable. And I want to be. I want to feel really stable on this earth. Maybe rotating open, platter hands, again the shoulder head sliding down, neck is easy. If you'd like to challenge your balance a little bit, you can move your head back and forth, looking forward and back. All right, see if you can deepen the lunge for just one more breath. We always want the knee directly over the heel. Give more power to that back leg. That's a huge part of your foundation. And now inhaling, straighten the legs and reach straight up through that right arm, following it with your vision if you can. I usually end up taking my head then to look towards the floor to make it easier on my neck. I'm counter reaching through that left hand, so it's like I'm measuring something between them. Again, I'm rooting through both legs. And so, you're on a bit of a balance beam, and that's how we want it, like you're between two panes of glass. One more long inhale. If you bring that top arm a little back along the ceiling, like you're painting a stripe, see if you can feel a new breath massage into that right waistline. Good. Now slowly bending that right knee, reaching forward, powers in that back foot. And so I feel very supported. I'm going to bring my right elbow to my right thigh, but I don't need it. I'm not leaning on it. Shoulder head's anchoring down. And ideally, I want that left shoulder stacked over the right. This is where we're going to get that great stretch into the left side. This is called lateral stretch. So make sure your body is flat if you can get it there. Make sure your knee didn't follow. It's engaging outward. And I'm going to take that left arm over my head towards the wall beyond my head, getting as long as I can, like I'm trying to push a button on there. And you can kind of pulse, like reach and unreach. And you can even rotate that left shoulder or chest towards the floor and then stack it again. And as you're ready, you're breathing willfully, thoughtfully, and asking, is there more? Okay, one more long inhale. Exhaling, I'm going to come on up. If those of you who are familiar with dog series, you want to toss that in, you're welcome to. And I'm going to come back into crescent lunge. I find it's helpful to have the hands on the hips. I'm also going to shorten my lunge a little bit. I can feel it's a little too long to do this easily. So I'm going to then rotate, return onto the ball of that back foot. And want to steer those hip bones again. If I leave this hip bone kind of to the left, I'm not going to have the stability in that internal thigh engagement that's going to help me get back to my mountain pose. So when you're ready, and actually I'll give you an extra little fun challenge today. Those of you who want, you'll just directly come back to mountain, feet together on the mat. Those of you who'd like a little more intensity, see if you can keep this left foot airborne and bring it into standing crane again. It's a lot of work on your standing leg. Ooh, doggy, yeah. And hello. Nice. You can shake out that leg if you'd like. All right, let's find ourselves again in mountain pose. So I've got my hands in prayer hands, and this is a nice centering, a nice way to quiet all the fibers that were lit up, trying to make that all happen. One more long breath. Okay, and I'm going to start pushing the earth away. I kind of call this an athletic stance. So just deep engagement, pushing, and then lifting that right knee, standing crane. Yoga toes peeling back, noticing any movement, and noticing particularly that standing foot pushing down through the ball, through the inner line of the foot. Soft tongue, lightly connected. Soft breath. Is there more? I know this is a long hold on that thigh. Slowly stepping back. Again, it's like you're trying to see behind you with your mind's eye, reaching through the ball of the foot. And when you get there, whether it's through one stance or a scooch, just check his knee above the heel of that front leg, and then also check that the hip bone's shining forward. You might even squeeze your inner thighs like there's something between them you want to squeeze. Again, don't let it take that knee in. Still straight forward, but squeeze those thighs. And I'm going to come into jet airplane, but this time I'm going to take one arm up, one arm down. Enjoy a deep breath and notice, is there more? Where do I feel that last little bit of stretch? And switching. Deep breath. I can really feel it in my low abdomen on the right side. I didn't on the left. That tells me, like, okay, I'm a little tighter over there. And let's switch one more time, and we're going to add a little side bend. So I'm going to imagine I've got my right arm up, left arm down, then I've got kind of a heavy pail on my left arm. And I'm going to let that pail come a little down, right? As if I was trying to set it down on something, just a little. I might have moved, I don't know, an inch or two. Deep breath. Steady gaze, that'll help you. Good, come on back and switch. Your legs might be talking to you by now, mine are. Big breath.
Let that heavy pail in the right hand go a little bit down. Good. Keep talking to the inner line of that front foot. I can feel mine quivering, doing its best to hold me steady. Keep reaching through that left arm. Good. And come back up. Good. I'm going to take hands to prayer or hips for stability, and then rotate that right foot flat for our warrior two. So here again, it's external thighs, and I can do that by taking the left glute and pressing it towards the right wall. And that's another way of thinking about externally rotating those thigh muscles. So again, we should feel really rooted in that back foot. We never want it to be coming away. It's anchoring. So shorten or lengthen your stance as you need to be in integrity. Reaching hands out from the heart, shoulder head sliding down, maybe adding platter hands. Light connection of the tip of the tongue, roof of the mouth. Ujjayi breath, soft vision. And if you want a little extra challenge for balance, but also really good spinal movement, you can take your head to look at your back hand and your front hand. During one last breath, see if you can go a little deeper. Now that you know you don't have to hold any longer. Oh, hello legs. Good. Inhaling, straighten both legs and reach up through that left arm. And I really want to squeeze these thigh muscles towards the bone. I just don't have the leg just locked. I'm engaged. I'm pushing. And again, taking your vision or head wherever the neck finds ease. Reaching and counter reaching from hand to hand. Breathing fully in spite of the challenges of our shape and the effort. And then imagining you're painting a little strip of the ceiling back with that left hand. Not much. And breathe. And then slowly bending that left leg, coming into lateral stretch. Again, I'm coming in with shoulder heads anchored, core nicely connected, shoulders stacked. Good, I'm going to pause. I'm going to check that external rotation that I feel really like I've got a long line from the foot through the crown of the head. Your head might tend to want to go forward. It does for most of us. Draw it back. Yeah, and I know that makes the balance challenge harder, but hey, the floor's not that far away. You'll be all right. Reach that right arm forward. Good, and again, you can make some little pulses if you want, stacking and unstacking the shoulder. And then as you're ready, get your deepest stretch from the back foot through the middle finger and breathe. Where is the massage? Good. I'm going to come back up, hands to hips, coming onto the ball of that back foot. Steer or anchor those inner thighs and hip bones. Make sure you've got your weight in that inner line of that front foot, that thigh squeeze. That's what's going to give you the stability. And if you got to hop along the way, fine. But otherwise, just see what would it take in one movement to come into standing crane. Whew, notice if one leg found this harder. This one was shaking like crazy. The other one found that a little easier. So again, we get to notice our weaknesses, our strengths, and all of that. I'm going to do just a little standing hip pump, as I call it, to kind of balance out some of that deep stretching. So as you're ready, inhale, bring the butt a little behind. Exhale, squeeze the glutes forward. And it can be just a little movement, or we can kind of go into chair pose, butt coming further down. And I'm going to add my arms, pulling back like I'm pulling on a rope or a TheraBand. Keeping my head neutral. This is not a back bend. That'll just tighten out the front of the neck in a really awful way that we want to avoid. So we're just working the pelvis into that big glute squeeze that helps balance us all out. One more. Shoulder blade sandwich. Good. Step sideways on your mat, 5-pointed star. And you can, walk it out. You don't have to do it all in one movement, obviously. But pause and notice, what does it take to root through the inner line of the foot that I've been talking about, the big toe and the ball, and then anchor and spread the rest of the toes. And my hope is you feel like a little tree frog, just super stuck, super stable. 5-pointed star, those arms are reaching out. And we're just going to hold for about 3 breaths, noticing, bringing breath into every part that we can. It's always easier to focus on breath with eyes closed. But of course, not every pose will allow you to do that, but feel free to add that here if you'd like. Marvelous. We're going to inhale and sweep up. Exhaling, I'm going to fold. I'm going to bend my knees just like we did when we had our legs together in ragdoll. And fold, hang a moment. You can always add a sighing breath. And then we're going to go side to side. This is a movement that we are designed to do, but many of us could probably think of weeks that have passed when we have not had our feet wider than that below the hip bone kind of parallel path of motion, right? So this is so great for inner thigh, IT band stuff, really helping things release stored tension, increasing range of motion, decreasing injury. We love it. As you hold now to one side, pause and notice the other foot. We want it powerfully anchored. Again, we're not letting it drape or relax. Good, and I'm going to be inviting a low spinal twist here. So I have my left leg straight, right knee bent. I'm to the right with my hips. And I'm going to plant my left hand. I'm going to sweep open through my right arm. You may or may not make it all the way to the ceiling. And I'm going to exhale, return. I'm going to do that a couple more times. Make sure your weight's mid-foot. In other words, you're not back into the heel. Good. One more. And we'll go to the other side. When you're ready, inhaling, sweep open through that left arm. Exhaling, return. Is there more? Is there more? Letting breath initiate motion. We know that it's the breath that talks to our central nervous system and says, again, I am well, I am whole. It makes us operate better on every level. And release. Good. Come back to center. Support with the hands a little while you walk the feet in a little. Bring the heels in a little bit, just a kind of nice neutral. And as you're ready, come on up. Good. Nice glute squeeze. Exhaling. Prayer hands. Again, feel free to close your eyes and center. Notice breath. Notice heat. I'm noticing that this is not a particularly vigorous practice in some ways compared to, say, our flow practice on Thursdays. But what we find is that when we are holding postures like our warrior and we're doing it with integrity, almost every muscle in our body is lit up, and that creates some heat. So awesome, well done. I'm going to invite you to now grab your support for under the bra strap area, as I call it, kind of just below the shoulder blades. So I'm going to be using this rolled up bit. If you're using a block and it feels good overall to be up that high, but then you drape over it and your neck is kind of crunched, then you'd have the block under the bra strap, but you'd take something like a blanket or even a pair of socks and stuff it under your head, because we want to maintain length through the vertebrae at all times. All right, so I'm going to come on down to my elbows, kind of like I'm watching a show in front of me or something, and I'm going to see if I can get that aligned in what feels right, and then I'm going to drape myself over it. And I'm going to pause and kind of work my shoulder blades under, and that's why it's nice to have something that doesn't extend much past the ribs. So like sometimes in class we've used extra yoga mats for this, and I don't like that it doesn't let the arms relax down to the floor. Now you could have your feet flat like I do, and that's just going to give a little lower back support. Some of you will be very comfortable and really love letting the whole body just kind of drape, letting the hip bones relax so the feet kind of rotate open. And this is another great time to just roll that head side to side. You can even hold it to one side while you breathe. And then I'm going to offer an arm movement that is just wonderful for helping release the shoulder girdle and the spine. But again, the major gift always comes with the breath. So adding breath, holding, and waiting for it whenever possible. Inhaling, take that right arm to the sky, and then up overhead towards the wall behind, fingers actively reaching, keeping the elbows straight. We're not trying to reach the floor, we're trying to reach the wall. And then pulse that arm towards the ear and away. And you can let the head come along with it.
And my hope is you're getting to experience a little bit of a stretch through the side, the lat muscle, and so on. Things that get so tight there and hold our shoulders, often not in their best position. Good. And if it feels okay to do so, take that arm even further, kind of almost over across the head. Deep side stretch. And return to your neutral. So just always being aware of what's in the shoulder. If you start to do a sweep return and that doesn't feel right, come back up through that original path of motion. Left arm straight up. Especially if you're on the block, I find that doing the kind of sideways motion like a windmill is not real great. It sometimes can get kind of pokey. All right, we're gonna pulse that left arm towards the ear. I'm just letting my head respond. Breathing deeply through the nose where possible, again, sighing when you want to. See if you can gather breath and it just naturally forms here in this diaphragmatic area. It's an area that, as I was mentioning at the beginning of our practice, is often really compressed just by how we sit, even at a dinner table, or again, we're at a computer, or we're watching television, or having a conversation with a friend. Often we're kind of compressed, curled forward, and this area is not the way that we'd like it. Now, deep, deep breath into your deepest stretch. And returning to your neutral. Take a nice long breath here, gathering the gifts of the shape. Maybe kind of recounting what you noticed and learned about your breath, about your shoulders, your neck. When we come out of this pose, speaking of neck, we always want to take care of it. So we always roll a little to one side to come up. Because again, we don't want to tighten those front neck muscles. And so I'm asking you to gather your bolster, or if you've got something like this you were using under the bra strap, that might work nicely too, and it might give you enough support. If you place yourself on that object of support and you find that you're kind of hunching or curled, then that's a great clue that you want to go higher. Maybe you want to sit on a couch or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to close our practice with a little meditation, and you're welcome, also if you prefer to lay down, to take this in that position. Woo! I guess that'd be the problem with the rolled up item. Rolled me right off. All right. So whichever position you have found, please close your eyes. You can turn the gaze up and in. And now we're going to let go of breath control of all kinds. So we're not using our ujjayi throat contraction. There's just a softness, but also for right now an attentiveness. So if you want to keep the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth, that's a great way of staying present and alert. And I'm going to just offer a little kind of attention meditation. If you prefer to just go into your yogic sleep as we think of it during Shavasana, during the end, feel free to do that, and you can just let my voice kind of drift on by your attention. Otherwise, I'm going to invite you, in whatever space you're inhabiting in the moment, to send your listening outward from your body. We've been trying to listen deeply inward to our body this entire practice. And I'm going to ask you now to develop the attention outward. Do you hear bird sounds? Do you hear the humming of a refrigerator? Do you hear voices? Do you hear air movement? Taking a few moments to just gather information. And one of the things that I often notice when I'm doing this kind of listening meditation is that my mind immediately wants to name or identify what I'm hearing. That it's an automatic thing that
I can't really turn off, right? It's just how I'm built, what my mind does. We can also notice that sometimes we have evaluative thoughts about those things. In other words, good sound, bad sound, I like it, it's irritating, I wish it would stop. So just noticing that that also is a pretty automatic behavior that we have. What I notice, if you may not have an unpleasant sound or something that you deem unpleasant in the moment, and if so, I encourage you to practice this perhaps this week off the mat, is to notice if you're having a negative assessment of something. Again, you find it irritating, you wish it would stop, life would be better, you'd be happy if it wasn't there, that kind of thing. To notice what part of your body, and this may be very subtle, kind of engages or tightens in resistance. What I often notice is that one of the first things to shift is that my breath becomes shallow. If I'm having an experience of kind of resistance around something unpleasant, it may be something I hear, it may be something else, there will usually be kind of a tightening overall of my body and a shortness of the breath, a shortening of the breath. So if you have the gift of anything unpleasant happening right now, then you can practice noticing that tension and then choosing to create suppleness in the body and in the breath by deepening the breath towards it, asking, is there more? Can I be in soft, deep, abiding breath even in the presence of something that I find challenging? And I will be closing our practice in a moment with the bowl and 3 ohms, and inviting you, if you're feeling deep and focused, whether you're in a yogic sleep or you're just enjoying this listening meditation, you'd like to continue with it, then please do. Otherwise, we'll close the practice together, and I hope this practice will support you in all of the things you do the rest of today and on into your week. Thank you so much for getting to the mat, all the choices that it took, and again, well done. If you're on your back, you can join us oming from there. One of the great gifts of that shape is that you get the floor serving as a sounding board beneath you and against your rib cage. If you're seated, please make a point of rooting through the sits bones and rising through the crown so that the front and back body are equal, neutral. There's plenty of space in the diaphragm. And as we're taking our inhales, let us ask, is there more? When you're ready, gathering your long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. I wish you peace in your body, peace in your mind, peace in your soul and spirit. Namaste.